My name is Dirk van Zyl. I'm Professor of Mining Engineering at the University of British Columbia. And today's lecture in this series on mining and sustainable development deals with sustainability reporting. The outline is as follows. I'd like to say a few words about some of the measures of sustainability that one can use in the mining industry or that are typically used in the industry. Talk about specific association reporting, that of the International Council on Mining and Metals and that of the Mining Association of Canada as examples. Then spend time to talk about the Global Reporting Initiative, moving on to financing issues and specifically talking about the International Finance Corporation as well as the Equator Principles. When we look at the measures of sustainability, or sustainable development, clearly one can start by looking at informal measurements. For example, operating without conflict. And people may use that, or companies may use that as a way of expressing their progress towards sustainable development by indicating that they are actually operating without conflict. Clearly, that's a very singular way of looking at measures of sustainable development, and it is always better to look at a much broader perspective. It is also possible that companies report specifically to shareholder initiatives, such as Newmont's social impact reviews of 2007-2008 timeframe. These were specifically put together because of shareholder requests and then commitments from the board to the shareholders. There are the mining industry associations, and I'll spend some more time talking about ICMM and Mining Association of Canada. And then the further formal reporting that companies may actually participate in, such as the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. And I'm not going to spend much time on that, but I am going to spend more time talking about the Global Reporting Initiative. And so these are all different ways of measuring sustainability or contributions to sustainable development, and ways that companies have decided or are reporting on these in all the way from an informal way of doing it to a very formalized, structured way of doing that with assurance plans in place and audits, etc. Let's first look at the ICMM reporting. ICMM reporting is expected from all the member companies. The process includes basically three components. The principles, which are the 10 ICMM Sustainable Development Principles that were published by the Council, and it is expected that all member companies should implement those 10 Sustainable Development Principles. There is then reporting required, and that report would be in line with the GRI G3 framework, which I will discuss in a little bit. And then finally there's an assurance step, which is an independent assurance that the ICMM commitments are met. The ICMM has been upgrading and refining especially their assurance components, and all of this information is on their website. I'm not going to expand significantly beyond what is here, but it is something that I would like to make you aware of and point out that this is one of the major sustainable development reporting initiatives in the industry today. The Mining Association of Canada reporting really falls under their Towards Sustainable Mining initiative, which was developed and implemented to improve industry performance. This is an activity that really started around about 2002, 2003, and was very carefully crafted and developed, and they engaged all their members to make sure that there was agreement on this, and it is now fully developed to the place where participation in TSM is a condition of Mining Association of Canada membership. So all members of the association must agree to participation in TSM. There are basically three parts again to the reporting piece and to TSM. There are guiding principles, then there are performance indicators that must be evaluated and reported on a facility level basis, for example, a tailings impoundment at a specific mine site. So this is not corporate-wide, it is very much on a facility level where this is the case. And then there's external verification every 3 years. MAC also has a council or a committee of stakeholders, some of them from the company, some of them external, who actually participate in all of this TSM related reviews and verification work. The performance indicators are being developed over time, and again, when you go to the website of the Mining Association of Canada, you can look at all the various performance indicators that have been developed and that are being considered as over the next few years for full implementation by the members. So these are then two examples of sustainability reporting from industry associations. The Global Reporting Initiative is a much broader activity. In 1997, there was a coalition between the Environmentally Responsible Economics, or the Coalition for Environmental Responsible Economics, and the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. And they worked together to elevate sustainability reporting practices to a level equivalent to those of financial reporting. The draft guidelines were published in 1999, and the first version of the Global Reporting Initiative guidelines for reporting was published in June 2000. This was updated in 2002 and in 2006. The last set is then known as the G3 guidelines, and that is still the applicable guidelines for reporting under the GRI. The GRI Secretariat moved from the United States to Amsterdam in late 2002, and it is now officially affiliated with the UN as a UNEP collaborating center. So that's sort of the governance status of it at this point. In 2010, a mining and metals sector supplement was issued, and it was a multi-stakeholder process really under the ICMM coordination, and I'll say a few things more about that as we move forward. So this is a reporting initiative on sustainable development, not limited to mining and metals, but this is an initiative that is really open to all companies. And when you start looking at the annual record of publication of these sustainability reports, you'll find it really crossing all segments of industry: mining, banking, even making of drinks like Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, and forestry companies, and on and on and on. And so it's a very broad reporting regime that a number of companies have embraced, and they use that as a basis of more formal sustainable development reporting. The vision of the GRI, that disclosure on economic, environmental, and social performance become as commonplace and comparable as financial reporting and as important to organizational success. The mission then is to create conditions for the transparent and reliable exchange of sustainability information through the development and continuous improvement of the GRI Sustainability Reporting Framework. The underlying idea of the GRI reporting is not a PR effort. It really has to do with honestly reporting on performance, to set targets for future performance, and to also judge your performance against previous targets. These reports in many cases make for very, very interesting reading. They are reports, though, that are based on the whole corporation. It is not facility specific, it is not site specific. Within the corporation, all the site regional data exist, but those are not reported on the open forum. There's a large number of indicators associated with G3. So when we look at the G3 contents and the number of indicators out there, we see that they start with standard disclosures. Strategy and profile of the company, strategy and analysis, organizational profile of the company, the report parameters that are laid out, the governance, commitments, and engagement strategies of the company and their approaches, management approach, and performance indicators. And so you have the standard disclosures that are required up front. Those are then followed by a series of economic, environmental, and social indicators. And you can see the numbers of indicators there in the standard GRI G3 framework. 9 on economics, 30 on environmental, and then social is divided into the topics of labor practices, human rights, society, and product responsibility. So when you look at the GRI G3 guidelines, effectively they cover the 4 major parts of sustainable development that we have discussed in one of the other lectures in the series. And that deals with the economic conditions, it deals with the environmental conditions, with societal or community conditions, and also with governance, the corporate governance issues. So it is a robust framework, and I really encourage you to spend some time looking at not only the G3 guidelines, but also looking at reports from companies that have been compiled using the G3 guidelines, and to see how they look at all these various indicators, but also look at these indicators on a temporal basis. So looking at, for instance, the change in water usage within a corporation over time. And it is very useful as a tool to actually consider the contributions that a company makes towards sustainable development. Now, when we specifically look at GRI and mining, as I indicated, a supplement was issued in 2010, and that is available on the web as well. And that supplement includes supplementary performance indicators. So it actually increases the number of indicators above that of the G3, and also commentary on some of the indicators that include specific issues associated with the mining and metals industry and sector. Mining companies, but for that matter, all companies typically compile sustainability reports using their own approach. They may select the theme for the year, report under that theme, but they incorporate the GRI indicators in the process. And it is also very often the practice to provide a crosswalk or a reference list to read the report with respect to the GRI indicators. So the GRI indicators would be highlighted, and it would then basically be a list referring to the pages in the report, an index basically referring you to the pages in the report where those specific indicators are discussed. Again, it's a very formal reporting structure, and it does make for some very, very interesting review. All of these reports are also audited in terms of their adherence to the GRI guidelines, not necessarily in terms of the correctness of all the information, although some companies may decide that they actually want to look at an audit of specific pieces of information. The next step, the next topic that I'd like to talk about is project financing. This has become a rather important area of sustainable development thinking, reporting, implementation. The International Finance Corporation will be discussed first, and then we will go on to the Equator Principles. The IFC Sustainable Development Approach is really all part of the very strong focus that the IFC has on sustainability. On their website, there's extensive documentation available, and it's focused around policy on environmental and social sustainability, the performance standards, and then access to information policy that IFC has. The performance standards, there are 8 of them. These were revised in 2011 and published in early 2012. The revised versions were published in early 2012. And they cover a whole range of issues. And in order to secure financing from the International Finance Corp, it is important to adhere to all of these standards and to also gather data on all of these and report on all of these on an annual basis back to the IFC. And all of those requirements are set up as part of the financing that is provided by the IFC. So this forms a very significant reporting framework, and initially it was only the IFC, which is part of the World Bank, that had this requirement. But as people started being concerned about the broader implication of sustainable development on projects, the IFC and the World Bank started working with the commercial banks And the Equator Principles then came into being. And the idea was that the commercial banks basically agreed that they will consider the IFC performance standards as the basis for their own performance standards in terms of environmental and social issues whenever they finance a new project. Now, this financing of a new project would be in all sectors. It's not only in the mining sector. And the limits on that right now is that if the financing exceeds $10 million, then you have to adhere to the Equator Principles. A large number of banks, commercial banks, are now registered as part of the Equator Principles. It started with a handful of big banks, but now it's really very universal, and it's very difficult to find a bank where you won't be able to where you will be able to get financing without adhering to the Equator Principles. So you have to adhere to the IFC performance standards and also industry-specific environmental health and safety guidelines, for instance, those of the World Bank and the IFC. This clearly set up an important leveling field, if we want to put it that way, in terms of the quality that is expected at all projects exceeding loans of $10 million. Now, when you look at the implications or the application of this, all banks have their own policies and approaches to applying the principles, although there is an interbanking committee who are working together to actually understand how all of these policies and approaches can be implemented, but still they will all be very different. So if you have, or if a project has financing from 2 or 3 different commercial banks, the annual reporting and audits of the projects may differ from one institution to the next. And that may add some extra burden on the company in terms of, or the project in terms of preparing the data, getting it ready for audits. But in general, the principles are the same, but the details are different. The important thing, though, is that the projects must collect data on the environmental and social aspects of the environment, the surrounding areas, and this data, it's not just saying we're doing the right thing, it is showing through data that there is a robust plan in place and that these performance criteria are satisfied. And so this clearly sets up another way for the company to really start taking all of this very, very seriously. So this lecture really just highlighted some of these reporting initiatives. There are some very localized reporting initiatives. For instance, in Ghana over the last number of years, a process known as ACUBEN has been developed and was rolled out in 2010 and is now in full implementation. It is also a way of looking at the sustainable development performance of companies, specifically of projects. So it's again at the project level. And so this is a national program in Ghana. It is clear that there are extensive sustainable development reporting initiatives out there. And companies must decide, if it's voluntary, which ones they will actually participate in. It's also in cases like in MAC and ICMM, it's directly linked to the membership. So if you're a member of the association, then this is part of your duties. Financing is also subjected to data collection and reporting, and so it's not only the fact that you have a company, but also the fact that you actually finance a specific project. Now, once the financing of the project has been paid back, then clearly that reporting goes away. In general, progress is being made, and the reporting contributes to better practices. Over the last 10, 12 years, the sustainability reporting of companies have improved significantly. In one of the other lectures in the series, I indicated that really the first sustainability report was published by Placer Dome towards the late 1990s, and since then the whole sustainable development, sustainability reporting has expanded, has grown, has matured, and more and more we'll see more and more development as we move forward. So take the time, go visit a number of websites, look not only at the requirements but also at the outcomes, and you can judge for yourself whether this is actually making a successful contribution. Thank you very much.